Buluvinaka, I'm Mary, and I'm excited to be with you for this great webinar series. I'll be your host. If you're just logging in, welcome. We're about to get started. We have with us today International Master Trainer Steve Cordero. He will be talking about COVID-19, business survival, revival, and growth. Steve has been involved in the Fiji Enterprise Engine program since the very beginning. He has worked in Fiji and other Pacific Island countries, as well as other developing economies for over 30 years. He's currently working with a number of businesses to help them face the challenges that COVID-19 has brought and to plan for the future. We're just about to get started, so if you've just logged in, welcome again. And now let's join Steve.
Hola and welcome everybody. My name is Steve and I'm zooming in from Sydney. And originally from Singapore, I now live in Australia, where I run a manufacturing business, a marketing business, and a consulting business. And it gives me great pleasure to be able to take part in the launch of this COVID-19 series of seminars. And I'm pleased to be able to work with FSEF and with NDF. My thanks to them for taking the initiative to run the program. Now, I had originally prepared a set of notes from which to work from, but I think what I might do is abandon these notes and work from my heart, because what I believe you need are some real solutions to the issues at hand. And I have brought with me two guests, one from Singapore, who will be zooming in a bit later, and one from the university in Australia. So welcome to the program. Let's look at some of the findings of COVID, but on small businesses, and particularly on small businesses in Fiji. We'll start with a brief look at the impact on COVID-19 on the business scene in Fiji, and particularly on the impact of the program on small business operators. COVID has not been discriminatory. It's affected businesses across the world and even in Fiji. Some of you might relate to some of these figures. In Fiji, the Pacific Trade Invest Australia report conducted recently indicate that 91% of businesses have been negatively impacted by the COVID-19. 95% of you believe the crisis will have a negative impact on the local economy. 92% of you are reporting some decline in sales and revenue. But it's not all doom and gloom, because 2/3 of you say that your businesses will survive this crisis, and that's very positive to hear. Now, COVID-19 has brought on some major challenges for you, right? Some of the challenges are that 94% of businesses don't know how long the crisis will last. And because of the closure of international borders, it has had a major impact on your businesses and particularly affected your cash flow situations. Now, that has brought a major concern to many of your businesses, right? Now, some of you may be able to relate to this situation. But further, on a personal side, right? 50% of you have found yourself worrying about the situation for a long time, if not always. Having to worry about feeding your family, your children, and supporting your employees is a major issue, right? 59% of you have reported the crisis will have a negative impact on your mental health. And 86% of your decision makers believe that the crisis will impact your personal situation negatively. That's understandable. Something like that is understandable. However, I want to ask you to think a little bit later. We'll discuss with some of these issues. But COVID has taught us a number of lessons. Despite the traumas and disasters that it has created, COVID has taught us a few things about business and about the people we deal with itself. Some of the lessons that we have learned is that COVID has taught us the true characters of businesses themselves. We have found that there have been businesses that have chosen to raise their prices unreasonably, taken advantage of their customers, and taken advantage of their suppliers. But at the same time, we've also found businesses that have gone out of their way to help and support their suppliers and customers. I want you to think, have you found any businesses in this situation? Now, when the economy recovers, as it undoubtedly will, what will your opinions of these businesses be? I want to leave you with that thought for a moment. COVID-19 has also taught us that the best plans that you have developed are not worth very much when you are hit by a pandemic, an unknown enemy, right? And so, despite your best planning, things don't always work. COVID-19 has also made you question what and where your priorities are. It's made you start to think of yourselves as business operators and as individuals supporting members of your family and your community. And what it has also demonstrated that the businesses that will survive are those that are flexible, that are agile, and responsive to the changing needs of the market. This means that in many cases, those businesses that will survive if they are creative and innovative. What the crisis has created is a sense of innovation and creativity in businesses themselves. Now, there are a couple of considerations that we have to make as business operators in this situation. The first thing that's crucial for us is to think about how do we deal with the situation we find ourselves in now. That is our survival strategies. How do we deal with the day-to-day situation taking place now? But remember, this situation will not always remain. There will be recovery. When it will take place, I'm not sure. What the recovery will be like, I'm not sure. However, we have to start thinking about the future and about how we deal with the recovery when it takes place and make sure that we are prepared for it when that happens. That's our recovery strategy. But between now and the recovery period, we will have this time span. How we survive during this period is going to be just as important for us to plan and prepare for. That's our state of preparedness, because when the recovery comes through, we will have to have this. I'm not sure. What the recovery will be like, I'm not sure. However, we have to start thinking about the future and about how we deal with the recovery when it takes place, and make sure that we are prepared for it when that happens. That's our recovery strategy. But between now and the recovery period, we will have this time span. How we survive during this period is going to be just as important for us to plan and prepare for. That's our state of preparedness, because when the recovery comes through, we will have to have all our systems in operation, all our plans effectively worked out. That is the stage of preparedness. In today's session, I hope to be able to address those three considerations. But let me get one thing very clear. You can have the best business plans, the best business strategies, the best advice to help you survive the recovery, the difficult times, and to take advantage of the recovery when it takes place. But none of this will work if you, as a business operator, are not ready physically, mentally, and spiritually. You have to develop yourself as an individual to be able to take advantage of the situation when the situation improves itself. And I want to share with you a few things that you need to consider. COVID-19 is making us question a lot of things and making us think about blaming someone for the situation we find ourselves in. Let me ask you to accept the situation that you are in. It's not you. You are not specially affected. Everybody across the world has been affected. Don't blame the government. Don't blame your competitors. Don't blame yourself. Accept the situation as what it is and look towards going forward. And look at focusing on what you can control. The elements of your business that you can control, those are the things you need to work on. Leave everything else aside. Don't look at what you cannot control. The third thing that you need to understand is that every day we are inundated with a lot of information. There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of news. The more you listen to that news, the more stressful you get. Many successful business operators have informed me that they are no longer paying much attention. To understand is that every day we are inundated with a lot of information. There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of news. The more you listen to that news, the more stressful you get. Many successful business operators have informed me that they are no longer pay much attention to what is on the news. They are looking, they are making their judgments on their own observations and on what they are, on the information that they are getting from credible resources. So let me give you an advice. Turn off your television. Look after the members of your family, look after yourself. Be physically, mentally, and spiritually fit. Consider your priorities as a business person and as an individual. Now, this situation also opens up opportunities for us to take. Business operators have informed me that they are no longer paying much attention to what is on the news. They are looking, they are making their judgments on their own observations and on what they are, on the information that they are getting from credible resources. So let me give you an advice. Turn off your television. Longer pay much attention to what is on the news. They are looking, they are making their judgments on their own observations and on what they are, on the information that they are getting from credible resources. So let me give you an advice. Turn off your television. Look after the members of your family, look after yourself. Be physically, mentally, and spiritually fit. Consider your priorities as a business person and as an individual. Now, this situation also opens up opportunities for us to take advantage of others and to take shortcuts in our business deliberations. However, recognize one thing. Everything that you do will have an impact on others. It will have an impact on your family. It will have an impact on your community, and it will have an impact on everybody you deal with. Consider the impact of all your actions on everyone, on others, and recognize that you are not alone in this battle. There's a lot of people out there who are ready and prepared to help you. They share your concerns. Talk with members of your family. Talk with other good business people. Seek the help of good business advisors, good business mentors, and coaches. Here, I want to put in a plug for FSEF and MBF. Get in touch with them. They have a pool of people who are ready and willing to help you. So let's move on now. We, in this situation, will have to make some very critical decisions. Let's keep our decision making in perspective. Whatever decisions we make have to be made from an economic, financial, and strategic perspective. Don't get carried away with bright ideas that amount to nothing. Make sure that all the decisions you make are not rash decisions. They are decisions that have some strategic benefit and give you an economical outcome. The next thing that you need to make sure is that the decisions that you make are legal and are structurally sound. What do I mean by structurally sound? when you're making these decisions, think about the long-term future of these decisions on your business. Will they last the test of time? The third issue you need to consider is these decisions have to be ethical and moral. In times like this, you will find that there are opportunities to take advantage of people who need jobs, whom you can employ, pay low wages, make unreasonable advantages, demands of them. But before you make such decisions, think about the long-term implications on you and your business. Because the decisions that you make, the moral and ethical decisions that you make now will have an economic, strategic, and legal impact on your business. So all these decisions, these three perspectives, have to be made in tandem. It's not, they all have an impact on each other. So let's look at us making and implementing these decisions. Let's look at the first stage of your business surviving. Shortly, we will be discussing strategies that you can implement in your business to help your business survive. And recognize that Fiji is not the only country that has been affected by COVID-19. COVID-19 has not been discriminatory. It has affected businesses right across the world. Many countries have been affected, some even worse than Fiji. What I have done is I have invited a guest who was zooming in from Singapore. YJ Cheng is the chairman of an organization called Belisa. He started off his business as a one-person operation. Today, he employs more than 240 people in a range of businesses, starting from hair care, trading, investment, import and export. He is also a professional coach. I'd like to welcome YJ Cheng. YJ, I want to ask you a couple of questions. What has the impact of the COVID-19 been on Singapore economy and particularly in your business?
Okay. Thanks for having me, Steve. Okay, what's the impact on Singapore economy? I suppose I can tell you from my personal experience. Let me see, not so much of Singapore itself. So far, the virus has caused a lockdown in Singapore since April until now. So it's about a 2-month lockdown. So all economic activities come to a standstill for the last 2 months. Looking at the numbers, I think it is not very positive. I mean, the economists expect -1% to -4% recession in Singapore for 2020. If it is near the lower end, which is -3% to 4%, that will make it the worst recession in Singapore. Okay, and the retrenchment figures are not very beautiful either. We are looking at they are projecting 45 to 65,000 retrenchment, and that is a very big number because if you for the last few years, for the last 10 years, I think the highest ever, if I remember correctly, is about 15,000. So this year we're talking about 45,000 or more. So there's a pretty big number, but not all is gloom and doom, because the stock market is rising again. I mean, since we declared the lockdown, the Straits Times Index, Singapore has dropped to about 2002, not even 2003. Now it's at about 2007, okay, which is like 25% gain since the bottom. So it has increased about 25%. So, well, some people say that stock market is the, predictor of where the market will be going. Okay, hopefully that's true.
Barometer, really.
Yes, so the future barometer. So if that is true, well, I think we have a great future ahead.
What has the impact been on small businesses itself?
Okay, the impact on small
Particularly
businesses.
on your business, a business like yours. You are in the beauty industry, which is very sensitive to economic changes.
Right. So basically, there's a lockdown. So due to the virus, we minimize social interaction as much as possible. So except for a few essential services, such as medical, in fact, all retail activities has stopped totally. So all shops are closed. I mean, all restaurants are closed, and at one stage, well, now they are available for takeout, but no dining in. So it is a total standstill. The government is very nice, as in the sense that during the stand down, they subsidize us. I mean, to pay our workers, they subsidize 75%. I think that's a very huge amount. But still, we have got no income, and we still need to pay the 25%. So I suppose for most retailers, it is a net, how do you call that, expenses. I mean, yeah. And of course, again, I think the government is doing their job. I mean, they help to subsidize our rental through rental rebate, through tax rebate. So it is, so we're paying minimal or no rental for the last 2 months. So yes, so to summarize, the government has helped us to minimize our expenses, but some of it still need to come out from our pocket. But we definitely have near to zero income for the last 2 months.
Thank you, YJ. We'll come back to YJ in a minute. We'll have to make and implement crucial decisions, strategic decisions, right? And these decisions have to be made very quickly. But
the government is very nice. The government is very nice, as in the sense that during the stand down, they subsidize us. I mean, to pay our workers, they subsidize 75%. I think that's a very huge amount. But still, we have got no income, and we still need to pay the 25%. So I suppose for most retailers, it is a net, how do you call that, expenses. I mean, yeah. And of course, again, I think the government is doing their job. I mean, they help to subsidize our rental through rental rebate, through tax rebate. So it is, so we're paying minimal or no rental for the last 2 months. So yes, so to summarize, the government has helped us to minimize our expenses, but some of it still need to come out from our pocket. But we definitely have near to zero income for the last 2 months.
Thank you, YJ. We'll come back to YJ in a minute. We'll have to make and implement crucial decisions, strategic decisions, right? And these decisions have to be made very quickly, but considered, right? And they must be very critical. And you have to start identifying what critical needs and functions that you want to maintain in your organization. There will be a need to get rid of some activities, and in doing this, recognize at this time, nothing is sacred. Nobody is sacred, not including you as a business operator. You have to look at yourself very critically and everybody and every activity in your organization and start to make very difficult decisions. It may hurt in the short run, but in the long term, it will bring significant benefit to your business. This situation also gives you an opportunity to rewrite your terms with your suppliers, with your customers, and with all those that interact with you. And in making these decisions, don't do it in isolation. Do it in negotiation with your employees, with your suppliers, with your customers. They all recognize the importance of these decisions, and they will likely be there to help you, because ultimately this will help ensure that the lifeblood of your business, and that is your cash flow, is stable, because it's your cash flow that will help see you through the difficult times. Now we've looked at the business growth, business survival. Now let's look at the revival of your business. My next guest is Dr. Glenn Pierce. Glenn is a marketing academic, specializing in small business marketing and with experience in the agricultural department. Welcome, Glenn. Glenn has just taken up time to visit us at our studio. Thank you for joining us, Glenn.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having us, and Bula Fiji.
Glenn, the impact of the coronavirus has been very significant on many businesses. Many businesses are now asking themselves what they can do to market their businesses in the meantime. What are some of your recommendations, Glenn?
Well, I think there's a number of things that businesses can do, Steve. One of the things that they can do right now is to prepare, to get ready for when things take off again. And I think that involves looking at maybe retraining, looking at the way you do things, retooling for success, and getting ready for when things take off, because things will take off. It's just a matter of when, and you have to be ready for that. So some businesses have seen this as a blessing in disguise, really, because as strange as that may seem. I know one leading entertainer in Australia. All the shows have been cancelled, of course. There's not too many entertainment shows. But what he's doing is spending this time reworking his act, developing new characters for his shows, reworking his website, redesigning the website, taking new photo shoots of some of these characters, and really getting ready to launch again when things start to pick up. So I think to prepare for when things get happening again is a very important thing to do now. And it's a bit like a football team, of course. The season hasn't started in one sense, so it's about training and getting ready for when the games begin. The second thing you can do, I think, is to, and VJ referred to this earlier, is about keeping in touch with your customers, letting them know you're still around, letting them know you care. And it's very important to do that. You'd have to revisit your database, revisit who your customers are, and keep in contact with them.
Right. I like that idea, Glenn, because I have another customer who is in the pet food business. He supplies fresh food to owners of dogs. And he has noticed that with the lockdown, a lot of people want to buy food for their pets, but they can't get this. So he's expanded his home delivery service for pet food, but he's also helping, getting in touch with his clients on things like pet care online, the regime of using your pet as a support animal. So with that, he's now building up a lot of trust and relationship with his customers. So I like that point.
So there's another example of that too, Steve. In Sydney, we have a number of registered clubs, and these can be either sporting clubs or return services clubs. And there's one club called Cabra Vale Diggers in the west of Sydney. And what they've done, unlike many other clubs, they've used this time in lockdown to get their staff to contact their members, to give them a call and just to find out how they're doing. How are you today? Is there anything we can do for you? And they've done this on an ongoing basis. I know that we're members of the club, we've received a number of phone calls from them.
Good.
And I think it's a wonderful initiative because it's actually using staff productively, and it shows that the customers are important to the club. And as I say, no one else is doing it. Not one other club that I'm a member of have done something similar. So I think that's really important to do that. Let them know you're still around. Wonderful initiative. So, and I think another thing you can do currently is to do all you can to prepare for and to manage the customer's experience, to make sure that things don't happen by chance, that everything's done properly. And of course, it's going to be a new era now of hygiene, and we have to adhere to all sorts of sterilisation and making sure that surfaces are clean. In the hospitality industry, this is important because we've got to make sure that guest rooms are in the right condition and so on. And I saw today that the Shangri-La Hotel in Sydney, one of the big hotels at the top end of town, it's reopening, and they're doing things like retraining all their front of house staff. They're also doing things like, when it comes to cleaning guest rooms, they're using ultraviolet lights to make sure that the rooms are cleaned adequately. So I think managing the customer's experience so the customer gets out of it what they want is paramount, and we need to, as business operators, be attuned to what customers really want to experience and to make sure that that experience is smooth and flows well.
Excellent. So in summary, the three things that businesses can do, it would be, one is to
prepare for when things take off.
And
get ready. Two would be to keep in touch with your customers. Make sure they know you're still around and that you care. Very important to do. And the third thing is to manage the customer's experience. Make sure that we give them what they want.
Good. Thank you, Glenn. We'll come back to Glenn in a couple of minutes.
Thanks, Stu.
What you need to do is to take a close look at your business and assess the damage that has been done to your business. What disasters COVID-19 has brought to your business? Which areas have been most vulnerable? I need you to review your cost, the cost of every activity, and identify what can be sacrificed and what needs to be kept. That means recalibrating and redesigning your operations. You also need to look at assessing the capital requirements that you will need to help your business grow and survive these difficult times, and be able to manage that capital. Because despite these problems, there are opportunities that you may be able to take advantage of. And I'll talk about that in a minute. You will have to put in a lot of effort in rebuilding resilience and confidence among the people you work with, your customers, your suppliers, your employees. That is going to ensure that when things improve, they know that you are an organization and a business that you can trust. You will have to look at your business model, or the way you run your business, who you supply, what you supply, how you supply, and how you manage your business. That is your business model. But having all those activities are wonderful. You need to be able to not only sit down and plan for them, but also implement them, measure their performance, and modify and change where necessary. Now, I need to get a little bit honest with you. A reality check. Things are going to get worse before it gets better. As people look across the globe, start assessing their own situations, their own financial situations, then they ask themselves, do I need to travel? Do I need to spend this money? So there will be a lull in the global economy for a while before it picks up and gets better. And when that improvement takes place, the future is not going to be what it was in the past. It will be a different future, a future which, if you are able to take advantage of, you will have tremendous success. But those that will succeed recognize that it's not going to be an overnight recovery, and recovery will take a long time. So you need to be prepared for that long-term strive, that survival technique, right? What you, as a business operator, needs to ask yourself is, what will the new age be like? What will the new economy be like? And we'll talk about a few strategies and scenarios that you do develop when you are addressing that, answering that question. You also will need to ask yourself, what do I want my business to be like in the new era? What markets will it cater for? What types of customers will it service? What products and what services it will deliver? And finally, what is your new business model? Basically answering those questions that we have just asked. Those are challenging questions, but these are questions that you need to ask yourself.
Moving forward, what are we going to do? Moving forward, okay. Before that, okay, during the lockdown, what do we do? I think important thing is to keep our staff engaged, as well as keep our clients engaged, because I mean our staff has 2 whole months staying at home, not doing anything. So we need to continue training them so that they're still at in tip-top condition when we reopen, right? And for our clients, I mean, we take care of their hair and their scalp concerns. So we have not had a chance to meet them physically. So we need to contact them, by phone, by WhatsApp, and so on to keep engaged, so that once we are open, I mean, they will still remember us and they will still come back. Okay, and once we reopen, then there will be a lot more expenses. Okay, so we have to manage our costs very, very carefully, because the future is still not very clear. Okay, why? Because the lockdown is over, but we are not opening everything at one time. We are opening in 3 phases. Phase 1 is well, for people like us, hairdressing, but there are a lot of other retail shops that are still not open yet, and I suppose they will open in phase 2, but it is not very clear when phase 2 will be. And phase 3 is the night spots where people have very close intimate contact and big scales sports, events in the stadiums where there are large number of people. So if phase 2 and phase 3 are not here yet, all it means is this: our client, they could be in other retail business, they will have no income yet, so they may not have the spending power to come to us. So I mean, just because it is open, it doesn't mean business come back automatically. So we have to be extremely cautious about our expenses. And also, although we have opened phase 1, but I am preparing for a second lockdown. No, not that there's any indication at all that there will be a second lockdown, and I pray that there will not be anyone, that there will not be a second lockdown. But you never know, because I mean, if we use Korea as an example, they are one of the first country to have 0 cases, okay, and have to open up the economy. But then again, well, the minute they open up, there'll be more cases, and now I think, yeah, so there's a second wave again. So I'm just preparing for the worst. What if there is a second phase? There is a second lockdown. What do we do? So I've made notes of all those things we did not do well during the first lockdown, such as maybe our broadband is not good. There's a lot of issues. How do you call that? Logging in back to our office PC through the VPN and so on and so on. So we have to solve all this problem, and how do you call that? So if ever there is a lockdown again, we will not be so restricted like the first round. And learning from this experience, we also hope to do more online sales, because previously most of our sales are in person when they come to our salon. But well, with the lockdown, we did a bit of telemarketing as well as online sales, which bring us a little bit of income, not a lot, but I think that has opened our eyes. Hey, I think we can do this, and we are improving on that. Sorry.
So you are basically changing your business model.
We're improving on that. Sorry.
So you are basically changing your business model.
We are modifying our business model to, yes.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, because that's very reassuring for people. Thank you very much, YJ, for giving your time to us today. And if any of you have any questions for YJ, just let us have it in the questionnaire section on the right, and we will forward it to him and come back to you directly. Thank you once again, YJ.
Thank you, Steve.
So we've dealt with business survival. We've dealt with business revival. Now I want to look at business growth, preparing you for the future that will undoubtedly take place. The future is going to be better than it was. I firmly believe in it, right? However, it's not going to happen to us if we don't prepare for ourselves for this. To be able to take advantage of these strategies, of this growth, we need to develop some strategies. The first thing is to be able to validate every bit of information we receive. Don't use broad pictures. Go out and find out the real figures. Get the real facts. It's only when you have the real facts that you can plan different scenarios. What if this happens? How do you deal with it? What if this doesn't happen and something else happens? How do you deal with these strategies, these different scenarios? You have to make different strategies for different scenarios. And once you have done that, you can start prioritizing your options, getting back and saying, what do I want to really be good at? What do I want to be known for? Do I want to be known as a good operator, or do I want to be known as a cheap operator? These are the scenarios that you have to determine and decide what you want to be known for, right? And to be able to survive, you've got to be better than everybody else in the market. This requires you to be innovative and creative in your products, in your services, and in the way you operate your business. It gets back again to my favorite topic of developing a new business model, a new style of operating your business. And in doing that, you need to apply good processes in your operations, good human resource relationships, and good marketing strategies. These three things will help you see your business through and succeed in the growth times. Because ultimately, what you have to do is to create and protect the reputation of your business. I now want to get back to Glenn Pierce again and talk to him about the future trends in business. Thanks for coming back, Glenn.
Thanks again, Steve.
Glenn, where do you see the future heading to? And what can businesses do to prepare to market themselves for the future?
Steve, again, I think there are a few initiatives that businesses can do. One of the things I think we need to do is to think creatively about our businesses, to try to identify opportunities. And there's lots of good resources that we can use. I've got an example of one here, a book that you're probably familiar with. It's How to Create New Ideas. There's lots of good information about things that we can do to rethink what we do, right, to create new ideas. Now, that particular book catalogues a whole range of techniques that can be used to come up with solutions to current problems. And I don't think we spend enough time working on creativity.
Right.
And I mean, there's brainstorming. Sometimes people do brainstorming, but they don't always do it properly. If you're going to do brainstorming, you've got to make sure that everyone's positive, that you're going for a quantity of ideas, you're listing those quantity of ideas without any critical thought. The critical thought and evaluation comes later. But it's about generating a large number of ideas from which we can actually work down into some feasible options. So I think that
I think that the business person on a day-to-day basis is so busy running their business, they've got no time to think outside the square. And now this has forced them to start thinking creatively.
That's right. And I think there are lots of ways that we can shape our creative thinking, lots of ways to help us come up with new ideas.
Right.
It's just a matter of tapping into those ideas and using them.
Right.
I think a second thing that we can do is in the future is just try to be the best we can be. Try to be the best we can be. Not the best in the world, but try to do the best you can do at any one time. And a third thing I think we can do is to control what you can control. If you try to control things that are out of your control, it can be a source of anxiety and depression. And again, YJ talked about that, how it's affecting businesses. So I think to control what you can control is the way to try to approach that. Now, in Australia, we've got a very successful rugby league team called the Melbourne Storm. And the Melbourne Storm coach has worked for many years very successfully to encourage his players to just control the things that they do.
Right.
So don't worry about what the opposition's doing. Control your players and make sure that you execute adequately. And that's what businesses have got to do. They've got to control their plays and make sure that they execute correctly. And the fourth thing I think is really, really important, Steve, in the future, it will be to understand the customer's problems and to provide practical solutions for them. And I'll give you an example of that. Recently, I had a musical instrument that was missing a tuning peg up on the machine head. It was a mandolin. It was a vintage mandolin that I'd had for many years, and I was looking to restore it. And I was given a contact in the States for a business that could supply parts for this particular musical instrument. And when I wrote to them and asked for this tuning peg, the response I got was, we don't have the tuning peg, but we could sell you a set of strings. Now,
What good is a set of strings without a tuning peg?
Exactly. So it really isn't solving the customer's problem. What they could have done is value added, and they could have come back and provided a solution and said, look, we don't have the tuning peg, but this is where you might get it. We've got the strings, but you need the peg first. So here are some suggestions as to how you might obtain that. So again, I think it's that approach is what that particular parts supplier was looking at, was just trying to sell what they've got and not solve the customer's problem.
And that's going to be very important in the future, because I think the customer of the future will not be the customer of yesterday, not necessarily the customer of yesterday. The customer of the future will have different needs, different wants, and different expectations. And it's important for us as business people to understand those expectations.
Very much so, and I think recently another entertainer who's been on cruise lines was talking about how customers are going to be different and how things are going to be different, and things will be different. Customers will have different expectations, and they'll be looking for different types of solutions for the problems that they've got. So we've got to focus on that, give them what they want to get. So the old marketing message of creating and keeping customers, keeping others happy.
Thank you very much, Glenn. If you have any questions for Glenn, list them out on the side, and we will ask Glenn and come back to you. Thank you very much once again, Glenn, for giving up your time.
Thanks very much, Steve, and good luck, everybody. Thank you.
And I'm glad to be back here. And after Glenn, and those were our two special guests. Glad to be back here. And after Glenn and YJ. Now, I want to relate a couple of experiences directly related to the COVID-19 and the tourism industry. Fiji is very highly dependent upon the tourism market. Now, when COVID hit, many organizations in the travel industry canceled the warranties that they had given, changed their rules, operating rules. This disappointed a lot of customers. A lot of customers felt that the promises that they were made about were suddenly lost, right? Now that travel is coming up again, many of these organizations are finding it very difficult to get their customers back. Customers no longer trust them. However, Sri Lanka took a totally different approach. When COVID-19 hit, many visitors to Sri Lanka could not leave the country. They were forced to stay there. They didn't have much money. Now, what happened in Sri Lanka is that many people in the community adopted these visitors, provided them with accommodation and with food. And now the word is spreading. If you want to go for a good holiday, go to Sri Lanka. You will never be abandoned. And I think because in the tourism industry, people are looking for security. They're looking for reassurance that if something goes wrong, they will not be abandoned. I'm not sure if any of you have followed this story, but if you haven't, I suggest you Google the Sri Lanka story and tourism. Now, This ends my session.
Thank you again to Steve and to everyone for joining us today. A big thank you as well to our partners for making this possible, the Australian Government through the Market Development Facility, Fiji, and support from the International Labour Organization and the Australia Pacific Training Coalition.